and welcome to Brain Balance Live. This is the show where I, a fellow Brain Balance mom, get to pick Heather Wells' brain. She's on this side for me. I don't know if I'm doing it right for the guests, but
you are.
This is Heather. She's a board certified cognitive specialist, a therapist. She's been the National Autism Summit speaker. This woman knows we don't use blanket statements, right? She knows so much about the brain.
I do not know everything. The more you know, you don't know, which is exciting. That's
right. We find out every day how little we know. Right. But if there were to be an expert on neurodiversity, this is going to be one of the people that you want to talk to. Heather, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I enjoy this cooler weather. It's raining. It's like, I don't know. We have plenty of hot weather. And I had a nice meal last night. Took a minute. So it was good. How are you?
Very nice. You know, one of my friends that lives in Texas just told me it's getting ready to freeze here again. And I kind of had like the PTSD. I kind of went, what? But it's not going to get that cold, is it?
I not that I've seen. No, it's just enough. I want to wear my hats and sweatshirts and boots, and getting a chance to do that. I'm all about it.
Yes, I love that. The cold weather gives us a chance to dress it up.
Yeah. No, I love like fall, winter clothing. I love it.
Yeah, it's so good. I love it. So everybody that's in Texas watching us right now, enjoy. It's cold here in Florida too. So we're gonna live it up while we can. What are we
and for about? any northerner watching, we know it's not like real cold. It's cold for southerners, so we understand.
That's right. It's cold to us. Right. As we see there, our topic today is time management. What are we going to be talking about specifically?
I think time management is actually behind like health and fitness and weight loss types of goals at the beginning of the year. Time management is one of the top things. I want to be more productive. And this, if you have tried apps and hacks, you can Google time management and you can find hundreds of ideas on how to manage time. And yet those struggles still exist because they're good hacks. There are apps that are very well designed. But what's not known, and we can go ahead and jump right into the first slide, is that those tools presume underlying skills to use them effectively. In other words, ironically, you need time management skills in order to use time management apps and tools, including planners, which we'll talk about. And the other issue here, if we stop there with time management, I'm going to talk about all the parts of time management. Some of them are not obvious at all. And they are the things that in research are shown to be the rarest and the hardest to cultivate. Most apps and tools only deal with arrangement. It's called arrangement. It's 3 A's here. But arrangement is planning and scheduling. That's important. But some kids or adults might even struggle with that because you need time management skills to use them effectively. And if you're spending more time using the app than you are with it helping you get more done, it's sort of counterproductive. But they do not deal, on the next slide, Beth will show you, there are 3 elements of time management. The one that we think of is arrangement. How am I going to design and organize my goals, my tasks, my projects, to use time most effectively? That one is the most common skill to actually have. And by the way, about 1% of people accurately estimate their time management abilities. I've been questioning myself on that because I've always thought I'm a good time manager. I get a lot done in a day, but I am really diving in and how can I get better at it? And I think that one is my weakest. So I am counter to the research on arrangement. But awareness, thinking realistically about time, understanding it's a limited resource. It's the primary skill to avoid procrastination. Woo! In terms of if adaptation is also, but in the research, this is a lot of times kids are playing, they don't realize, they feel like they've been playing video games for 15 minutes and it's been 3 hours. Yeah. Time blindness is a real phenomenon. It is very common in those with ADHD or ADHD-like symptoms. If you have kids who time or adults, this can happen with us too. Time just flies and you can't believe how much time has passed. There's an element of time blindness to this. We're going to talk about why that happens. But do your kids have an internal clock? If you have kids who get really out of sorts because You said we were doing this at 5:30. It's 5:37. They may be lacking. That may look like they're very cognizant of time, but a lot of times kids who do not have a strong internal clock that regulates them and helps their day make sense, gives them some predictability, they rely on the schedule and routine to give them that predictability. So lack of an internal clock can mean they rely even more heavily on when you said things were going to happen.
Yeah.
Another thing I'll say about time blindness is that a lot of test anxiety comes from this lack of time awareness, time blindness. I know I have 45 minutes to take this exam, but I don't know what 45 minutes feels like. So therefore, I get nervous about tests while I finish, or I rush through it, and then it looks like I'm just being careless, don't care. It can look like impulsivity, and there is an element of that as well. That can also be time blindness. And we're going to talk about how to address all of these. Adaptation is monitoring the use of time while performing activities, adjusting to interruptions, or shifting priorities. Sometimes what was the top priority changes over time, because this happened to me the other day. I had a seminar that I was prepping for, and it was crunch time. And then I get an email that they are postponing this event. And so now that goes somewhere else on the priority list, and the next thing came to the top. It requires cognitive flexibility to do that, and being able to manage your emotions, especially in high pressure situations, and roll with the punches and adjust as things like that pop up.
Yeah, to not just like let yourself be so upset that you've done all this work all up to this point. You've wasted so much time trying to prepare for this thing that they just canceled.
And the way I just felt like, wow, this is going to be an amazing seminar, because I have all this work done ahead of time. And now all I have to do is tweak it when the time comes. And that doesn't have to weigh on me in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
So really teaching kids or yourself how to kind of talk through those things.
Love that.
So it's very important to know about these 3 elements of time management. So many of our kids have struggle with awareness and adaptation. Okay, let's move on. And just to mention, I have to say this, sometimes it can look like individuals struggle with time management, and maybe the output is indicative of that, but why? We must know why they're struggling in the first place. I want you to know that there are 3 top tier granddaddy executive function abilities from which time management, organization, prioritizing, task initiation come, and they are cognitive flexibility, being able to switch gears. If you have kids who are very black and white, everything's great, everything's horrible, I'm right, you're wrong, they might also struggle with time because of lacking the flexibility to shift priorities. Response inhibition. Instead of so much of what gets in the way with time is, I'm supposed to be working on this shiny object, something really cool over here. Having the self-regulation to ignore those distractions and stay the course. That is a part of impulsivity. That is a part of attention distractibility. So if that's going on, we can work on time management tools, but it's not helping the impulsivity. We've got to take care of the root cause of these issues. Working memory. I found this image, I'm like, how perfect. But apply this to a lot of different things. Working memory is problem solving, task completion memory. You have this mental sketch pad that can hold about 5 to 7 items on it at a time. So if I'm working on this project, I might need the password to my account for this because I've saved some documents over here. I need to remember when it's due, what are the components, and juggling those to get the task done. So how much time gets lost because kids are missing certain details or big picture items that go with the project. All of those are top tier skills. So just keep this in mind. We got to make sure we take care of those underlying struggles. I just want to mention that because so many times the symptom does not match the underlying cause. All right, let's move on. Now we're going to start really getting into some strategies. I wanted to lay some groundwork first. So if you have kids who struggle with time blindness, just kind of lacking awareness of time, to see time, externalize it. One thing, we have so many kids with sensory motor struggles. I mean, that comes in a lot of different forms. If your kids kind of come across as lacking rhythm in their bodies, lack of coordination, their bodies don't work together. If if they can't like clap to a beat. It is very important. We learn time first in our bodies. That is more of a physical demonstration of time. So having them do hand movements or body movements to music, playing drums, that's an obvious, even if you don't have a set of drums, y'all are like, no, not in my house. But you can get cardboard boxes, turn them upside down, and use spatulas. You drum a beat, have your child drum it back to you, with different emphasis, not just what the beats are, but also just different intensities of the pattern, and have them replay it back to you. They do a beat, you do it back. It's fun. You're getting movement, you're getting body-brain connection going, and you are building a sense of time. Any games like that where they start feeling it in their bodies. If you have kids whose swing is often baseball, if you just anything where things just seem to be a little herky-jerky and not smooth coordination, think about the sensory motor system. By the way, time will also impact literacy, because the sense of time is the same part of the brain where you can sound out words, caterpillar. It's the same part of the brain where you hear the difference between I saw the car go on the ship and I saw the cargo on the ship. One is a vehicle and one is freight. Think about the difference between envelope and envelop. If your child reads a story about clouds that are enveloping the sky, are they picturing the thing you mail a bill in? I just said that. That's so old school. How many people actually mail bills now? I mean, it happens.
Nobody mails anything anymore. Louise.
U.S. Mail Service, what? It's still a thing. I know because I get a whole lot of mail. But my point is the sense of time helps literacy, spelling, sounding out words, writing, sense of time. And it's very important for body-brain connection with the sensory motor system. Another way to see time in our digital age, we don't appreciate analog clocks enough. The reason analog clocks are so important for those learning about time is it is a visible marker of how time progresses. And so getting into a habit of having them keep an eye on the clock where they can feel, what did that feel like? That's been 5 minutes. That's been another 5 minutes. That's what 10 minutes felt like. And it can even help them chunk down, practice your spelling words for 5 minutes. In the morning, you can have what they're supposed to be doing as far as eating breakfast, getting dressed, getting their backpack. And if once they get past this, if they're still on breakfast and they're supposed to be packing lunch, they know they got to start hurrying because they're getting behind schedule.
I absolutely love this. I want, like, how the fast food restaurants change their menus and stuff. I want to have like all the different clock options of all the different routines we have, and a clock that I can just like put that one in for the morning and let him see that. That's so cool.
Yes. There are clocks where you can actually do this, and you can get clocks that kids will actually like. It's their favorite color, or it has a character on there, so that anything that kind of draws them to the clock can be helpful. Plus, if it's, let's say you have one by homework station or something, and it's one that's audible, hearing that, they're getting the auditory and the visual. And so they have multi-systems that are starting to understand how time works. If you just like, I don't want to go buy special clocks, but just get analog clocks, you can put ones in different rooms, and then you can post the schedule beside the clock. So that's why I have that in the center. Wake up, get dressed, eat breakfast. You can have that visible schedule with the clock, and I would recommend putting times with it if you're not going to put it on a clock itself. But do practice, like countdown timers work really well for a lot of students. If you have kids who struggle a lot with anxiety, sometimes countdown clocks make them more nervous and they sort of get paralyzed. So experiment. But for many, this is just the ticket. At homework time, okay, you've been working this for 15 minutes, then you get a 5-minute break. And so they can keep going because I only have this much time left. It doesn't feel like an eternity. You told me I have 15 minutes. I don't know what that feels like, 3 hours. So I shut down because I don't want to do it. But when they see the time ticking down, it feels doable to them. But all kinds of experiment with watch timers, phone timers. I mean, it can be an egg timer in the kitchen, but use different alarms for different purposes. If you have the same alarm sound for everything, we kind of start tuning it out a lot of times, so have ones, especially if your kids are on certain medications, this is the medication alarm. If it's time to end the break and get back to homework, have have like an upbeat thing that can really internally get the juices flowing to get them ready to hit it again. So these are just ways to make us feel and start understanding what 5 minutes, what 15 minutes, what a half hour feels like. And then moving on to the next slide, here's some more ideas for how to get better time awareness. So identify peak performance times. We all have circadian rhythms. We know that, but we all have a unique body system where we're more alert, we're more productive at certain times of the day. So even if you like the idea of getting homework knocked out as soon as the child gets home, I highly recommend them getting a healthy snack. And they've had a long day. They may need a break, but really pay attention to what their peak performance times are and what adjustments can you make to the family schedule. Family schedules are great, but they might need some adjusting. I do recommend taking your kids' input on this. You're still the captain of the ship, but when they feel like they have say in it, they're more likely to abide by the calendar. And by the way, another thing that really decreases distractions, and I want to do something fun, is when they know that they do get that 5-minute break. The thing that they're wanting to check their phone, they're wanting to check their messages during homework time, you get to do that in 15 minutes, not until then. Create a time budget. How do you spend your time? The must-dos versus discretionary. This can feel tedious at first, but it's very eye-opening, where you start realizing where your time actually went. And wow, I started browsing the internet, and one search led to another, and before you know it, 2 hours is gone. Being aware of that can make you start. There are so many blockers where you can't get to certain sites during certain hours. It's so important to have protected time where we don't have those distractions. Try timing up instead of just thinking about how we've talked about the benefit of timing down, having a countdown timer, but also record how long you've spent on tasks with clear deadlines. This will help you estimate how much time something will take in the future. A good rule of thumb for anyone, but with your kids as well as I do this in my own schedule. I know that I am going to add time to how long I think this should take, because there might be some roadblock, and that way you're not running late. A lot of times individuals with ADHD or similar types of issues with or without that diagnosis actually forget. Let's say they're at work and they know they have a meeting that starts at 3. They don't think about that is in a different part of the building. I need to allow 10 minutes to walk from my office to where that meeting is taking place. So they might schedule a meeting that ends at 3 and then the next one starts at 3, and now they're late getting there. So intentionally talking about those types of things. Assess how realistically you estimate time and the significance of the task relative to the time you spend doing it. This is number one. We got to learn to estimate time. Have kids estimate how long they think this research paper is going to take. And then after it's done, keep a running total of how long it took, and they can see the difference between what they estimated, how long it took, so that next time they can make a better estimate, but you still pad it because things are going to happen. But there's another element here, and that is called bike shedding. Human beings are very good. We all do this, I think. I would love if somebody doesn't do this. I want to know your secret. I certainly do this. Bike shedding is when we spend extra time on something that in the big scheme of things is not that important, but we can convince ourselves very easily that it is. I mean, I am going to make this presentation look phenomenal, and I make sure my little bubbles here are just in the right place because I want it to look good for everyone. And if I had it half an inch in a place where it didn't look as good, the content would have been just as good, and my time could have been better spent doing something else. But we're really good at convincing. A lot of kids use this for avoidance. There might be a certain part of a project they like drawing. So as they're drawing a picture of the solar system, it already looks great. And they keep going and going. I'm going to add glitter to this one. And oh yeah, I'm going to add a color to this one over here. And then, oops, now I'm supposed to write about the solar system and I only have 10 minutes to do it. So how much is a certain assignment worth in this class? Helping them understand that, okay, this is worth 50% of your grade. This is worth 5%. So we need to spend approximately 5 times more. There are caveats to that. Help them understand that. Take a future time perspective. How will what you're doing help or hurt your future? This is important for getting buy-in, for getting motivation. If I understand, how many times y'all hear me say why something matters, why we're doing something, connect what we're doing. I mean, math we've talked about this before. So many students think math is so dumb. When am I ever going to use this? When am I ever going to use this? I remember asking myself, when am I ever going to use XYZ in school? I don't know that I did that with math, but I might have, like with geometry or something. But anyway.
Or physics or something like chemistry if you're not going to become a chemist.
But there are connections between that, even if it's indirect, and things that your kids care about.
Yeah.
So make those connections. How is it going to strengthen their skills in something they do care about? That makes a big difference. And I think that's a good lesson for us as adults too. How is this going to help or hurt my goals?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, let's move on. So that's all about time awareness. Now we're looking at arrangement, and this is the part of time management that most people think of when they think of time management. But it's important to know that you don't want to structure your time and then take control of your life. Think about, I'm going to take control of my life, and what does that look like? What do I value? Then structure your time around that. When we put values first, when you think about why you're doing what you're doing before what it is you need to do, everything else starts falling into place better. If you have kids who struggle with seeing the big picture, the context, and the main idea, the gist, and they hone in on a detail. This was my boys. I'm teaching them about, you don't always get your way, sportsmanship, having flexible thinking. They'd be like, no, his shirt wasn't yellow, it was orange. I'm like, thank you. So they were very detail oriented. That a lot of kids who are sloppy with details are actually detail oriented. Those are the things they get hung up on.
Yeah.
The wide angle lens is perspective, it's context, it's main idea. If your kids have struggles with that, they most likely are going to have difficulty understanding the difference between what's urgent and what is not urgent, what is important and what is not important, and who cares? What do we do with that information? This right here is perfect. The goal is to get out of urgency as much as possible by managing your time better in the first place, but it's going to happen. So what does urgent mean? It means that there is a looming deadline. It is a crisis. It's an unexpected emergency, last minute thing that popped up. So-and-so's sick at work and they were going to do this, and now I need to cover this part of the presentation. It's important and it's urgent. That's where you start. If you have a long to-do list that is not categorized according to urgent, important, urgent, not important, not important, but that kind of thing, then we are going to not have our priorities straight probably in how we're using our time. Important but not urgent are relationships, living a healthy lifestyle, relaxation, hobbies. Self-care is extremely important, but you can fit that in at the times that it makes sense for you. It's not about a deadline on that. When you're living in the important but the not urgent, that is when flow happens. And that is, y'all know, if you've ever worked on a project and you just get into a groove and things are just falling into place. This is what writers hope for. They want to get into a state of flow where I don't have a block. It is just, the ideas are just pouring out of me. What I'm writing about is important. It is not urgent. I'm not facing a deadline, so I don't have anxiety or anything associated with that. That is where you want to spend as much of your time as possible. Not important, but urgent. I got to get to this meeting. Some calls, some emails. It depends on what the email's about. That's why it says some. Internal pressure can make me feel that things are urgent, even if they're not important. A lot of times these things are what become interruptions. At work, I recommend scheduling time where I am not going to look at my email during this time. This is so hard because your email's getting blown up all day. But what we know is you are about 50% less effective if you are quote unquote multitasking. Yeah. In fact, multitasking in the research, what's happening in the brain is that you are quickly shifting from this task to this task, back to this one, back to this one. You're not actually doing two things at a time. And the energy required for your brain to keep switching gears back and forth is taxing.
I feel like as a parent, that's my greatest struggle.
Sure. That's what I was going to say. As a parent, you are on a phone with the doctor and then mommy, the house is on fire. But your brain, the reason that is so tiring is because, so there are times when you cannot avoid those scenarios. Yeah. I certainly can't, running multiple centers, but it is taxing because your brain is over here, where's the fire extinguisher? Over here, yes, doctor, what were you saying? Your brain is having to switch gears. You are not handling the fire and the doctor at the same time.
Yeah.
So are there times you can protect where during these periods of time, I am not going to get on social media. I am not going to respond to text messages. I am not, and my team sometimes knows I am out of pocket. If it is, I'm not available right now. If it is urgent, they know they'll write like 911 on it. And if it doesn't say that, then they know that after XYZ, I will get back with them.
Yeah.
I need to improve on this, but I have done certain things to try to get better at this. It's not like I have all this figured out, believe me.
No, but it's so hard in the age of immediate gratification. We're also used to being able to contact each other instantly. And some people do expect answers fast. And if you don't answer them, there's pressure. And it's hard now to like have boundaries like that.
Not for your husband. I like that. I mean, his phone is on do not disturb all the time, but it makes sense because he still is very responsive.
Yeah.
But he's not going to let ding, 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 get in the way. And that is so, I admire that.
Yeah. He's very good at all of this.
Yes. I'm getting better. So I understand this intellectually. It doesn't mean I always implement all of this perfectly by any means, but, we talked about reduce underestimation errors, estimating how much time something took. Really gauge that with your kids. How long do you think this project will take? Even if it's just the daily math worksheet, then look at how long it actually took. And now they know better how to estimate. You also know how to adjust your family's schedule. So the more we reduce underestimating time errors, the less time we spend in the urgent. But break down large tasks into smaller ones. And I think that really goes into the next slide, because one of the mistakes that people make with planners is and you're like, I would give anything if my child would put due dates in their planner. But let's say they do that. They have this project, it's due at the end of the 6 weeks. Help them break down the big task into its components. And how much should they have done 1 week from now, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, 4? And those are due dates, even if they are not at school. They are at home due dates for each part of the project getting done. And you can celebrate completion of that. We always talk about celebrating progress. They start feeling win. Even if they don't quite get there, look how much closer you are. And what can we do to make up this part and get the next part done? But put those in the planner as if you maybe use a different color for the school due date. Color coding is very good. But there are a lot of myths that come with planners. One is, let me Google what is the best planner. And that's going to be the one that works. Or let's just take our kids to the store and they pick out a planner. I highly recommend asking your kids, what made you choose this planner? And most of the time it's going to be because they like the color of it. It has a superhero, something about the aesthetics of it. Ask them, how would you use this planner to help you get your assignments in on time? If they don't have a good answer for that, then help them find one that works with the way their brain works. The best planner for one person is not the best planner for another. Some general things are that it's better for it to be thin and spiral bound, not leather. You can customize it. They can get stickers. They can do things to personalize it, but it matters how it's laid out. Does that work for your child's brain?
Recommend a paper planner over the digital apps and things?
Yes, there are several reasons for that. One, so many reasons. There's a lot of research that suggests by writing something down, number one, the handwriting is self-regulating. You're getting some literacy skills, but there is more of one of the biggest skills needed for life that is the least talked about, I think. And I did a post about this, I think on Friday, but visual spatial skills. We use this for everything in life. I understand that writing this in this square on this planner, how that relates to where I am now and what it means for time. We need visual spatial skills for reading, writing, math, navigating, and driving. It is thinking with your eyes and understanding the relationship of things with each other. But there's also research about how it is more of a brain dump when you write it into this external thing as opposed to this all-encompassing phone. The other problem is kids will, I'm just checking my planner. And that may not be what's happening. Sweet kids, Oops, didn't really think about how that's not necessarily the truth. But that way you know what they're doing. There's a lot of reasons for it. Paper planners, it doesn't mean there aren't apps that are helpful. There are some very good apps to check out. But another thing that gets in the way of kids using a planner is accessibility. It needs to be in the same spot in their backpack all the time, like the front pocket, for example, and it needs to have a pen in there. The two steps, pull it out, open it. And you have a clip that has it open to the correct week. A weekly layout is usually better for kids because a monthly layout can be really overwhelming. So that's another tip there. But a sleeve where any correspondence from the school or any homework is just right there. How can I make this so easy where kids aren't fumbling around for a pen? Where is it? Where is it?
Yeah.
But let's see. Garner motivation. You get a kid's buy-in on this, then it's going to be huge. One way you can do that is to put all activities, not just school assignments in there. Birthday parties, family outings, extracurricular activities, everything. Fun stuff is in there too. So it's not just this drudgery of that paper and this math. There's also really cool stuff in there. Talk about how it can benefit them in being on time for baseball practice, how it also using it demonstrates responsibility and what are some of the privileges that come with responsibility. Speak your kids' language on that. And you get their buy-in and show them why it matters. Now they're going to use it. Have them come up with, how do you think this will benefit you? We always want them to fill in the blanks they can, and then we help with the rest. But review when to use it and what to write. So, for example, if your kids are in middle school or high school and they're switching classes, there may be times that they need to think about, I won't have time to go to my locker between these classes. And so when do I need to get what books? I need to get the next 2 classes worth of books when I go this time. Have that mapped out, okay? And what to write. They need to put what the assignment is, the details of it, the due date. You really have to explicitly, that may seem obvious, but it's not necessarily. A lot of kids with visual perception issues, if you consistently have kids, Mom, I didn't know about the assignment. The teacher's like, it's written on the board. That can be a visual perception issue, another part of our sensory processing. But teach them how to abbreviate. Use text language. I mean, you for you. Like that's so much more helpful. They can get more written down. Sometimes it's a timing thing. They might have slower fine motor skills that aren't automated. But color coding things. These are due dates. This is when exams are. They come up with color coding. These are the fun items, that kind of thing. Chunking has to do with breaking big assignments down into, I'm going to have this much done by this date, this much by this date. A really effective technique. I've done this with so many students. Talk to a school about having the teachers double check the planner before they leave class, and they'll initial it to make sure it has all the pertinent details. Completely flip the script for how things are going for kids. Such a simple thing. Having a weekly family meeting is very helpful. Sunday evening often works well, where everyone pulls out their planners, talks about the week, if there are any conflicts, or, oh, honey, I thought you were taking her to dance class. I didn't realize you had. That's a good time to work those things out. Your kids also see you planning time in advance. Anything that you're going to do as a shared activity. Thursday night's going to be popcorn night. Everybody puts it in there. Looking through the planner and seeing if there's anything missing or anything they have questions about, and then helping guide them on getting those answers the following day. That's a lot, but planners work. People think, whatever is the top selling planner is the one for your child, not necessarily, or for yourself, not necessarily. Planners just don't work for my child. It requires executive function abilities to use them. Back to what we were saying about apps. You have to have certain skills. So we have to explicitly teach kids how and when to use it. And it does work. It's just that we can't just, another myth is that just giving my kids a planner and just telling them to write stuff in it, write your assignments in it, is enough. It's not. How do I use this in a way that makes life better? Okay, let's move on.
I love all of this. I loved a paper planner before. I used to use paper planners all the time. Corey has switched me to full on electronic, but you've given me the tools I need to fight for my paper planner back.
Yeah, I mean, I know that seems old school to some people. There are many neurological reasons why it's recommended.
Totally.
Dr. Russell Barkley speaks a lot about that and about how you get the best brain dump. See, there's also a thing about online and media stuff where people are getting bombarded with texts and emails and social media and pop-ups, and And then it kind of lives in that world. Whereas if I am taking stuff and doing a brain dump here, and even aside from a planner, you can have a notebook where I have a lot of things on my mind, and that's a good creative idea. I don't want to lose it. Jot it down. You don't have to worry about losing it, and your brain is freed up to handle what you need in the here and now. There's
Absolutely
several reasons for that. But
I love it.
Adaptation. This is flexibility in high pressure situations when you're kind of living in that urgent state without emotions or distractions taking over. One thing to keep in mind is that once my emotional brain takes over, we have this, it's the amygdala, the guard dog of the brain that hijacks information that it doesn't make it to your prefrontal cortex where you can plan and problem solve and manage your time. So managing emotions is paramount. There are 3 stages of this that get in the way of time management. Where we want to be, the sweet spot, it's called the window of tolerance. I am present. I am engaged with you. I've had enough stimulation that I'm alert and motivated, but not so much that I'm overwhelmed. That is where you get flow and creative ideas and problem solving. I'm writing a paper and the words are just coming out. Click, click, aha moments. I'm connected. I'm connected to what I'm learning. I'm connected to the people I'm engaging with. I'm connected to myself. I feel safe and social. That's where we want to be. We think about hyper arousal because that's the stuff that gets the calls from the schools. That's the stuff that makes walking on eggshells at home a nightmare. That's what brings tears. When kids go into the fight or flight response, and that doesn't have to be when there's an actual physical danger. When kids with neurodevelopmental struggles, kids with anxiety, ADHD, one of the hallmark features is hyper arousal. I can go into a fight or flight state and be fighting off the tiger when there's no tiger present.
We actually had this exact situation this morning in the car. You know, Roger had brought his notebook from his backpack to the front to draw while we were on our way to school, which was fine. But when we pulled into Carline, he said, "Can you put this in my backpack?" And I said, "I can't reach your backpack. It's a little too far back there. Just when it's time to get out of the car, go straight back there, put the notebook straight in the backpack, zip it up, and you'll be on your way." And he's like, "No." And he started to get upset. Like, "That's going to take too long. I'm not going to be on time. I'm going to hold up the car line." And then when we stopped the car and he got out and was trying to shove that notebook into the backpack, I mean, he was just spewing mean things at me about how crazy I was and how insane I was to think that this was a good plan. And I thought, all from something that you chose to do. And I told you it was okay, but he got in this fear place.
Yeah.
And it was like, there was nothing I could say. I was just like,
and in those moments, there isn't. When kids are in that state, it is got to give them settling time, and then you address it later because that guard dog in the brain hijacks everything. They cannot logically process what you're saying. They're not going to be able to convey themselves in a healthy way either. And so it's just empathy, understanding what is the simplest way we can, that goes back to the accessibility. I mean, it is always in the same spot. If he's going to pull it out, maybe there's a rule like you keep it unzipped. Maybe that's all that goes in that particular. All we got to do is slide it in there and zip it up, where it just sounds so easy. But even just hearing that many steps was overwhelming to him. Yeah. And that's enough to make kids shut down. Yeah. So if they are impulsive, reactive, unable to connect, that is when you have tantrums, the emotional brain takes over, distractions take over, and logical brain problem solving, time management shut down. But what we often don't think about is hypoarousal. And that is the fight, flight, or freeze response. If you have kids who seem to be numb, they don't seem to care, it can look like lack of motivation, they're just shut down. I have this assignment, they are sitting there getting nothing done, maybe tapping their pencil. They can be in this hypoarousal. They're just totally disconnected from it. So what do we need to do to talk about the why it matters, values, how it connects to things they care about? Do they need more sensory input? Because we all have a sensory sweet spot that gets us alert and engaged. But paralysis is here. Acting out is here. This is lack of productivity. This is where we want to be. I just really want to show you how much emotions are playing into time management. Okay, let's move on. And to that point, it's commonly thought that procrastination is an issue of time management. And actually what a vast body of research shows is that it is The root cause of it is almost always difficulty regulating challenging emotions and moods. That can be in general, or it can be specifically challenging emotions or moods associated with certain like dreaded tasks. How can you make tasks less dreaded? Pretend like you're writing this paper to your favorite sports star, if kids are into sports, or use your imagination to, or maybe they can do things to, are they allowed to write in any color ink? And they write in their favorite. Sometimes just little things can get their buy-in. But these are some ways that plays out. Procrastination. Sometimes it's perfection paralysis. Sometimes there's a fear of failure, or I'm so hard on myself, I know I can't do it well enough, so I'm just going to opt out and not do it at all. Sometimes perfectionistic characteristics aren't just about me. It's about, I am going to wait until the stars are aligned. I can come up with any excuse, like these circumstances have to be perfect. My little sister's making noise. I'm going to wait until she's quiet. I am going to wait until I've had, you can make up any excuses, right? And we can really convince ourselves that those excuses are valid. We can't wait for the perfect time because the perfect time might not come. And emotionally exhausted. I mean, I don't even think we have to talk about that one. Overwhelmed. We can live in overwhelm in general, or I'm overwhelmed with this assignment because every part of this is the big deal. I don't get, these are the major components of getting this done, and these are the supporting characters. If everything feels like the big deal, I don't know how to prioritize. This is big picture, detailed kinds of brain processing. I don't know where to start, so I don't start at all. Driven by deadlines, time doesn't register until the cutoff is near. The tricky thing, and that kind of goes along with dopamine, but not entirely. Sometimes kids get this dopamine rush, which is a reward chemical that's often lower in those with ADHD. And the fact that there is a deadline, that makes it a little exciting. Now it's a challenge. And now they dive in. But what can we do to get dopamine going, but without it involving the deadline? We've talked about how to grow time awareness, which helps with that. But desiring dopamine, I need a jolt of fun. Maybe it is best for kids to do something fun before they hit their homework, because then you get those feel-good chemicals going before they tackle it. And then that's why it's good to work in chunks and then have a 5-minute break. Chunk, break, chunk, break. And they always have something to look forward to. Finding focus. Jumbled thoughts about where to go with the task. Another thing is hyper-focus. This is counterintuitive. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, and it's a very valid observation, until you really know how the brain works. My child can pay attention if they want to. On things they like, they can focus. Things they don't like, they choose not to. It's not a choice. We cannot control which things we happen to find novel and interesting. When it is novel and interesting to me, naturally, I am more, I have more desire to do it. Dopamine is flowing. They can't help that they don't enjoy this. We need to pull in background knowledge and make it more enjoyable to them. How can we connect it to things they care about? But hyper focus, kids can't control when that happens. Sometimes, man, things are rolling and now I'm on here and I didn't even notice that the house is on fire. Somebody's knocking on my door. And before you know it, I spent all this time on something. It can be gaming. That's not good. It can be on something that really does matter. But now, now I'm hitting a deadline on this other thing. I think I should do a whole show on hyperfocus. It's a double-edged sword. It can be a blessing. But suffice it to say that in my 30-year career, I don't think I've ever seen, it doesn't mean there's no choice involved in this, but in general, the big deal on kids can pay attention sometimes and not others is not just a matter of choice. I like this, so I'll do it. If I'm doing something I enjoy and that I'm good at, my brain's only working this hard. I can walk all day long. If I'm doing something that's hard, I'm having to work this hard. I'm sprinting and I run out of steam faster.
Yeah.
And then there's the hyper focus thing that they can't control.
Yeah.
So anyway, I want you to know procrastination is much more about emotional regulation than time management, although it affects your timelines. We're talking about root causes. Okay. And one other thing, hurry up usually just gets emotions going larger. So establish routines. We looked at the visual reminders. Doing it together gets their buy-in. Prep the night before. How many things can you lay out? The outfit's already out. The backpack is already packed. Lunches are prepped to the extent we can, and then it's just putting it together. Make it a game. How many toys can you put away in 3 minutes? Make it fun. Have music going during transitional times. Nurture their ability to see how time benefits them. We get this done. We get there early, and you get to play with Chris. How it benefits me. That kind of gets their antenna going. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hurry up. Aren't great. Usually not great things come from the words hurry up.
No. We actually had that happen this weekend. Corey brought the boys to see Izzy dance, and they actually missed her because they couldn't get out of the house fast enough. It was a
Oh,
real life heartbreak.
and that was her first solo, right?
It wasn't her first solo ever, but it was the first solo of the year.
Of the year. Gotcha.
Yeah, so they were pretty heartbroken. I think they were all pretty sad.
I'm sure.
We'll do better next time. And of course, we always adore having these amazing tools to assist us in those moments, even though none of us is perfect. We're all trying our best. So if you guys were here and you're watching on the replay, please write your comments. Heather will always answer those questions. And who knows, maybe it's going to spur another topic for us. As you can see, we have all of the places that you can contact Heather here. So make sure you take a snapshot of this. If you want any of the phone numbers to your local brain balance centers, call today, get yourself signed up for an assessment. You will not regret it. Anything else to add here, Heather?
No. Dr. Brian and I will be back on Thursday at 1:00.
Amazing. All right. So make sure you tune in there, and we'll see you again next week. Same time, different topic. Thanks so much, Heather.